The wind screamed over the white wasteland. Snow swirled so thick that the horizon disappeared into a wall of shifting grey. Captain Ross could barely see the faint red light of the beacon ahead. Each step felt heavier, his boots sinking deep into the fresh snow. Beside him, Emily's voice crackled in his headset. "Ross, slow down. We're losing Jake." Ross turned his head. Jake, their engineer, was struggling against the wind, holding a case of frozen tools. His face was hidden behind fogged goggles, but the way he stumbled showed how exhausted he was. They had been out in this storm for over an hour, checking the last of the weather sensors before nightfall. The Arctic was not forgiving. One mistake out here and the snow would bury you before anyone could find your body. Emily caught up to Ross, her cheeks red from the cold. "We should head back soon. This storm's getting worse." Ross nodded, but as he looked to the side, something caught his eye strange shape in the snow about 20 meters away. At first, it looked like just another snowdrift, but there was something unnatural about the way it curved, smooth, almost like a statue. He hesitated. "Emily, you see that?" She turned, squinting through the snow. "Yeah, that's not a rock." They trudged toward it, the wind pushing against them. Each step revealed a little more of the buried figure. First a shoulder, then an arm, then a face. Emily's breath caught. It was a girl. Her skin was paler than any human's, with a faint blue tint. Strands of white hair clung to her face, frozen in place. Her eyes were closed, her lips a faint shade of violet. Snow had almost completely buried her, as if she had been lying there for hours, maybe days. Jake finally caught up, his voice sharp with alarm. "Is she alive?" Ross knelt, brushing away the ice from her face. Her skin was so cold it burned his gloves. He pressed 2 fingers to her neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing. "She's frozen solid," he muttered. Emily shook her head. "No, look at this." She pointed to faint lines running along the girl's arm thin, glowing patterns that shimmered like frost catching the light. Ross frowned. "That is not normal." Jake took a step back. "Ross, we don't know what this is. She could be dangerous, or not even human." The wind roared louder, and Ross glanced at the sky. The storm was closing in fast, the world turning into a swirling blur. Out here, debate meant death. Emily's voice cut through the wind. "If we leave her, she's dead. You know that." Jake shook his head. "If we take her, we don't know what happens to us." Ross stared at the frozen girl for a moment longer. Her face looked peaceful, almost too human to walk away from. "Help me," he said finally. Emily immediately dropped to her knees to dig. Jake swore under his breath, but joined in. Together, they freed her from the snow. She was lighter than she looked, but completely limp in Ross's arms. The moment her body left the snow, something strange happened. The glowing lines on her skin flickered faintly, like a dying spark. Emily noticed. "Did you see that?" Ross nodded grimly. "Let's move now." They fought their way back toward the beacon light, each step slower under the girl's weight. Snow stung Ross's face, an icy wind clawed at his coat. The temperature was dropping fast, too fast, as they reached the base. Jake fumbled with the door lock, muttering curses through chattering teeth. Finally, the heavy metal door swung open, and they stumbled inside. Warm air washed over them, a shocking contrast to the freezing storm outside. Ross carried the girl to the central room and laid her on a bench. Emily rushed to grab blankets, wrapping them around her. Jake stood at a distance, still wary. Ross pulled off his gloves and touched her face again. Still icy cold. Too cold. She's not warming up, Emily said, frustration in her voice. We need more than blankets. Jake crossed his arms. What are you suggesting? Emily didn't answer with words. Instead, she unzipped her jacket and leaned close, pressing her own body heat against the girl. Help me, she said to Ross. For a moment, Ross hesitated. Then he joined her, wrapping his arms around both Emily and the frozen girl. Jake cursed again, but finally crouched down and added his own weight. The three of them huddled there in silence, listening to the faint hum of the heaters. Then a flicker. The glowing lines on the girl's skin pulsed faintly, then again, brighter this time. Her lips parted slightly, and a shallow breath escaped. Emily's eyes widened. She's alive. Ross kept his voice low. Then let's keep her that way. For several long minutes, they stayed like that, giving what warmth they could. The girl's breathing became steadier, and the glow along her skin grew stronger. Then, without warning, her eyes opened. Ross's breath caught. They were silver bright, metallic silver, with no visible pupils. She looked at each of them in turn, her gaze sharp, intelligent, and something else. Jake froze. Ross, she's looking at us like she knows us. The girl's lips moved, forming a sound too soft to understand. Then her gaze shifted toward the door, and her expression changed fear. She whispered something in a strange, melodic language. Emily leaned closer. What is it? What's wrong? Before anyone could answer, a low rumble echoed through the floor. The lights above flickered. Ross felt the vibration under his boots, growing stronger. Jake's voice was a whisper now. That's not the wind. The girl grabbed Ross's sleeve with surprising strength, her silver eyes wide with alarm. She spoke again, more urgently this time, and then, somewhere outside, in the blinding snow, something moved. The low rumble faded, but the silence it left behind was even worse. It wasn't the silence of peace. It was the kind that made the air feel heavy, like something was waiting. Ross kept his hand on the girl's shoulder. Easy, you're safe, he said, though even he didn't believe it. The storm outside still screamed against the walls, but that wasn't what worried him. Emily's eyes stayed on the girl. Look at her breathing, it's stronger now. The silver-eyed stranger lay still for a moment, her strange glowing lines pulsing in rhythm with her breath. Then, slowly, she moved her finger-stiffed, trembling movements, as if her muscles were learning to work again. Ross leaned forward. Can you understand me? The girl's head turned toward him. Her gaze was piercing, almost too focused. She didn't blink. She didn't smile. Instead, she raised her hand and touched his chest, right over his heart. Her fingers were cold, painfully cold, but her touch felt deliberate. Searching. Jake muttered from the corner. This is not normal. This is not human. Emily shot him a look. She's alive because of us. That makes her our responsibility. The girl's hand dropped back to her side. She sat up with sudden force, making Ross and Emily step back. Her eyes scanned the room like she was cataloguing every object, every sound. When she looked at the heater in the corner, her glow dimmed slightly, as if the artificial heat wasn't enough for her. Then she spoke. The sound wasn't like any human voice. They heard soft, flowing syllables, like wind moving through glass. It was beautiful and strange, but none of them understood a word. Emily tried to respond gently. We don't understand you, But we want to help. She pointed at herself. Emily. She pointed at Ross. Ross, and then at Jake. Jake. The girl stared for a moment, then slowly raised a hand to her chest. Saria, she said, the name rolling like a whisper. Ross repeated it. Saria. For the first time, her expression softened, just slightly. But the moment didn't last. Her head snapped toward the door as another faint vibration traveled through the floor. She stood suddenly, still unsteady on her feet. Emily rushed to catch her, but Saria shook her head sharply, refusing the help. She moved toward the frost-covered window and pressed her palm against it. The glowing lines on her skin brightened, lighting up the dark room through the swirling snow outside. Ross thought he saw movement shadows shifting in the white. Something big, too big to be human. Jake's voice was low and tense. Tell me you saw that. Ross didn't answer. He was already moving toward the door to check the external sensors. But before he could, Saria spoke again, this time louder. Sharper, her silver eyes locked on him. Emily stepped closer to her. You're warning us, aren't you? Saria nodded slowly, then drew her finger across the frost on the glass, making a strange shape. It wasn't just a random line. It was the outline of a huge creature, with jagged limbs and a mouth like a broken blade. Jake swallowed hard. What the hell is that? Saria turned and pointed directly at herself, then at the drawing, and then at the storm outside. She mimed running, then shook her head. No escape. Asterisk, Ross understood. It's after you. Before anyone could react, the external lights outside the base flickered, and then went dark. The backup generator kicked in with a low hum, but the heater struggled. The room temperature began to drop. Emily shivered. The storm's getting worse. If the generator fails, a loud thud hit the outer wall. The metal frame of the base groaned under the impact. Saria stepped away from the window, her glow brightening again. She reached for Ross's hand and pressed it against her arm, where the glowing lines ran. The warmth from his skin made the light flare brighter. Ross stared in confusion. It's like she's taking in the heat. Emily's voice was urgent now. Maybe that's how she survived before we found her. She needs our warmth to stay alive. Another thud shook the base. Snow fell from the ceiling vents. Saria looked between them, her eyes almost pleading now. She pointed at her chest, then at the door, and then mimed an explosion, her way of saying she could stop what was outside, but only if she stayed alive long enough. Jake shook his head. Ross, we don't even know if we can trust her. Ross looked at Emily. Emily looked at Saria. Then Emily spoke firmly. We saved her once. We do it again. The next impact was harder, rattling every bolt in the walls. The sound that followed was not from the storm. It was deep, guttural, and almost intelligent. Saria flinched at the noise. She stumbled slightly, her glow dimming. Ross caught her before she fell. Her skin felt colder than before. Emily grabbed more blankets, wrapping them around the alien girl, then moved closer to share her own heat. Ross did the same. Jake cursed, but finally he too stepped forward, joining them. Slowly, the glow began to return. Saria's breathing steadied again. Her eyes opened, brighter than before, and she looked at each of them with something new in her gazed trust. But outside, the shadow moved closer, and this time it was no longer hiding in the storm. Asterisk, the lights inside the base flickered again, shadows trembling along the walls. Every time the glow dimmed, the rumble outside seemed louder, closer. Ross tightened his grip on the rifle he had grabbed from the weapons rack. He didn't know if bullets would mean anything to whatever was out there, but holding it made him feel less helpless. Saria stood near the door, her silver eyes locked on the storm. Her glowing lines pulsed faster, like the beat of a racing heart. She was afraid. Emily knelt beside the frost-covered window, wiping away a patch with her glove. She peered into the swirling white. At first, she saw nothing, just a blur of snow and wind. Then, a shape, something massive, moved just beyond the reach of the bases. Backup floodlight. It was tall, at least 3 meters, but its form wasn't human. Long, jagged limbs moved with a slow, deliberate rhythm. The snow clung to its body, making it hard to see where it ended and the blizzard began. Emily's breath fogged the glass. Ross, it's real, and it's huge. Jake's voice was tight. How did it find us this fast? We're in the middle of nowhere. Saria stepped forward and drew another strange symbol in the frost, this one more detailed. The jagged limbs, the sharp spiked mouth, and the many, many eyes. Emily stared. She's seen it before. Ross lowered his voice. It's hunting her. That's why it's here. The creature outside moved closer, each step shaking the ground. The sound wasn't just footsteps, was like ice cracking, deep and sharp. Echoing through the storm, Jake backed away from the window. We should seal the doors. If it gets in before he could finish, the creature let out a sound, a low, vibrating growl that rolled through the air and into their bones. It wasn't just noise, it was wrong, too deep, too unnatural. Saria staggered, clutching her head as if the sound hurt her. The glow along her arms dimmed almost instantly. Emily rushed to her side. She's weakening. Ross looked between them. That sound, whatever it is, it's hurting her. The growl came again, louder. The metal door rattled against its frame. Somewhere outside, snow shifted violently, as if something was circling the base. Saria moved suddenly, pulling away from Emily and grabbing the small table in the center of the room. Her glowing fingers traced more symbols into the frost that had formed on the wood, 3 circles, a line through them, and a spiral. Ross frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Emily shook her head. Maybe it's a warning, or a plan. Saria pointed to herself, then to the spiral, then toward the door. She mimed pushing something away. Jake muttered, so she can stop it. Great, but how? And what's stopping it from tearing this place apart before she even tries? Another loud thud hit the wall, this time on the far side of the base. A long screech followed, like claws dragging across steel. Ross's jaw tightened. It's testing the walls. The emergency lights flickered again. The backup generator's hum grew uneven, sputtering. If the power failed completely, the heaters would die, and in this storm, they'd freeze in hours, maybe minutes. Emily turned to Saria. If you're going to stop it, you need to stay alive long enough to do it. Saria looked at her, silver, eyes sharp, and nodded once. Ross realized what Emily meant. Saria needed warmth again. But this time, there was no time to sit and wait. They huddled around her, just like before. Their combined heat made her glow strengthen slightly, but it still wasn't enough. Saria suddenly pulled away and grabbed Ross's wrist, pressing his palm flat against her chest where the glowing lines converged. A sharp heat surged between them, not burning, but powerful. It was like she was pulling the energy straight from him. Emily and Jake did the same, each placing their hands along her arms and shoulders. The light flared, almost blinding dot outside, The creature paused. Ross saw its silhouette through the window, tilted its head, like it sensed the change. Saria took a deep breath and stepped toward the door. Her legs were steady now, her glow strong and bright. Ross moved to stop her. "White, you can't go out there alone." She turned to him, eyes fierce, and spoke one clear word in English: "Trust." Before Ross could argue, she pressed her glowing hand against the control panel. The heavy door unlocked with a hiss. The storm screamed into the room as the door slid open. Snow blasted in, coating the floor in seconds. And there it was. The creature stood just meters away, its many eyes glowing faintly through the snow. Its body was made of jagged ice and shadow, its mouth opening into rows of frozen teeth. It let out that same gut-wrenching growl. But this time, Saria didn't flinch. She stepped into the snow, the door closing behind her with a heavy thud inside. Ross, Emily, and Jake rushed to the window. Watching through the frost, Saria stood tall in the blizzard, her glow cutting through the storm like a beacon. The creature lowered itself, ready to strike, and then her light exploded outward. The snow around her melted in an instant, steam rising into the freezing air. The creature shrieked, staggering back as if the heat burned it. Ross's heart pounded. She's fighting it. But the battle had just begun. The blizzard howled around the base, but all Ross could hear was the muffled roar of the creature outside. Every second, shadows moved in the whiteout beyond the window, clashing with the bright, pulsing light from Saria. Emily's face was pressed to the glass. "She's holding it back," she said, her voice tight. But not for long. Ross gripped the rifle tighter. He hated standing here while she fought alone. "Open the door, we go out there," and Jake cut him off. "And what? Freeze to death in 5 minutes? You're forgetting she's the only reason that thing hasn't already ripped through this place." Outside, Saria stepped through the deep snow with surprising strength, her glow leaving a trail of steam in the ice. The creature circled her, its jagged limbs stabbing into the ground, cracking the frozen earth. Its many eyes reflected her light, like shards of glass. Then it lunged. Saria moved with unnatural speed, twisting away as one massive claw slammed into the snow where she had stood. The impact sent a shockwave through the ground, rattling the base walls. Emily flinched. If she takes one hit like that, before she could finish, Saria raised her hands, the glowing lines along her arms burning brighter than ever. A wave of heat burst outward, melting the snow in a wide circle around her. The creature staggered back, its icy body steaming. It roared louder, angrier. Ross realized something. She's hurting it, but every time she uses that much heat, she's draining herself. And he was right. Even from inside, they could see her glow dim slightly after each burst. The cold of the storm seemed to swallow her strength faster than she could recover. The creature lunged again, this time faster. Saria dodged, but stumbled, sinking into the snow. The monster's shadow loomed over her. Ross slammed his fist against the wall. "We can't just watch this." Emily turned to him. "Then help her. The only way we can give her more heat." Jake blinked. "What? How?" "She's out there. We're in here." Emily didn't answer. She grabbed the portable thermal pack from the emergency kit and tossed it to Ross. "We get to her. She needs this." Ross didn't hesitate. "Suit up." In less than a minute, they were in heavy Arctic gear, rifles slung over their shoulders, thermal packs strapped tight. The outer door hissed open, and the storm slammed into them like a wall of knives. The cold was instant, biting through their gear, but they pushed forward. Following the light of Saria's glow, she was on her knees now, frost creeping across her skin as the creature closed in. "Move!" Ross shouted over the wind. They reached her just as the monster struck again. Ross shoved Saria aside, the creature's claw missing by inches. Emily dropped beside her, pressing the thermal pack against her chest. Jake threw another around her shoulders. The effect was immediate. Her glow flared, melting the frost on her skin. She gasped, her silver eyes snapping open, brighter than before. She looked at them, no words, just gratitude, then turned back to the monster. This time, when she raised her hands, the heat that poured out wasn't just a wave, it was a storm of fire and light. The snow for 10 meters around turned to water in seconds. Steam billowing into the air, the creature screeched, thrashing wildly as the heat cracked its icy armor. Chunks of frozen flesh fell away, hissing as they hit the slush below. Ross fired into the exposed spots. The bullets didn't kill it, but they slowed its movements. Emily grabbed a flare gun from her belt and fired. The red flare exploded against its chest, burning bright against the storm. Saria pressed forward, her light pushing the creature back step by step, but the storm seemed to fight against her. Snow swirling faster, the wind screaming louder. Ross realized something terrifying. The storm, it's not just weather, it's part of it. Jake swore under his breath. "You mean that thing is making the blizzard?" Before Ross could answer, the monster roared and slammed both claws into the ground. The shockwave threw them all into the snow. The heat around them vanished, replaced by a freezing wind so sharp it felt like it cut their skin. Saria struggled to her feet, swaying. Her glow flickered dangerously low. Ross crawled toward her, grabbing her arm. "No, don't stop now." Emily ripped off her gloves and pressed her bare hands against Saria's skin, ignoring the cold that instantly numbed her fingers. Jake joined, doing the same. Their combined heat surged into her, and for a moment the glow returned full force. Let out a cry, half pain, half power, and thrust both hands toward the creature. The light that erupted was blinding. A wave of heat rolled across the snow, steam exploding upward as the monster's form cracked, shattered, and finally burst apart into shards that evaporated into nothing. The storm broke instantly. The wind stopped. The snow fell silent, collapsed into Ross's arms, her glow fading to a soft shimmer. Her silver eyes fluttered open, and she whispered one word in perfect English: "Warm." Ross looked at Emily and Jake. None of them spoke. The silence outside was too strange, too sudden. Because if the storm was part of the creature, then something else was still out there, watching. The snow had stopped. The wind had died. But the silence outside the base was heavier than any storm. Ross held Saria in his arms, feeling the faint shimmer of heat still radiating from her skin. Her silver eyes were half closed, her breathing shallow but steady. Emily knelt beside them, scanning her face for signs of life. "She's stable." "For now," Emily murmured. Jake's voice was low, uneasy. "Storm's gone, monster's gone. So why do I still feel like we're not safe?" Ross didn't answer. He could feel it too, that strange crawling sensation along the back of his neck, like someone, or something, was still watching. They carried Saria back inside, sealing the door behind them. The heaters kicked in, filling the room with slow warmth. Emily wrapped her in blankets, but the alien girl didn't move much. Her glow had faded to the barest flicker. Ross set his rifle down, but didn't remove his coat. Jake checked the Perimeter sensors. I want to know if anything's moving out there. Jake grumbled but obeyed, heading for the control panel. A moment later, the monitors flickered to life, showing 4 camera feeds of the snowfield around the base. At first, nothing, just an empty white expanse. Then one feed, GLITCH-ED. The static cleared for a second, and Ross saw a shape, far in the distance, tall, still, facing the base. "Emily," Ross said quietly. "You see that?" She leaned over his shoulder and froze. "It's not moving." Jake tapped the screen. "Maybe it's just debris from the fight." The shape tilted its head. Ross's stomach tightened. "That's not debris." The camera feed cut out. Saria stirred suddenly, her eyes snapping open. She sat up too quickly, her hands gripping Ross's coat. She said something in her language, fast, urgent, the silver in her eyes blazing. Emily tried to calm her. "We don't understand, slow down." Saria pulled free of the blankets and staggered toward the window. She pressed her glowing palm to the glass, and a faint heat spread through it. Frost melted away, revealing the white expanse outside. There was nothing there. She turned to them, shaking her head. She spoke again, slower this time, and then pointed upward. Jake frowned. "Up, you mean, in the sky?" Before anyone could question her, the power in the base flickered. The heater went silent. The hum of the backup generator died. The lights went out. They stood in darkness for 3 long seconds, then the room was bathed in silver light. Not from electricity, from Saria. Her glow was stronger now, but different, more urgent, sharper, like a flare in the dark. She moved toward the door, but Ross blocked her. "You can barely stand. We just fought one thing out there. We don't know what else is coming." Her voice was steady, her English still broken but clear enough. "Not coming. Here, here." Already, the floor vibrated. Just slightly, but enough for everyone to feel it. Ross grabbed his rifle. Positions. The sound grew like the deep groan of ice shifting under pressure. Then the vibration turned into a pulse, rhythmic, almost like footsteps. Heavy ones. Emily's eyes darted to the far wall. "It's under us." A deafening crack split the air. The floor lurched, metal groaning as something massive slammed against the foundation of the base. Dust fell from the ceiling vents. Jake backed away from the noise. "It's trying to come through the floor." Saria stepped forward, her glow intensifying. She turned to Ross and Emily, placing her hands on theirs. The heat that spread between them was stronger than anything before, so intense that Ross felt his skin flush even through his coat. Emily gasped. "She's taking everything, every bit of heat we have." Ross met Saria's gaze. "If you do this, will it stop whatever's down there?" She didn't answer with words only. Fierce nod. The floor buckled again. A massive, jagged limb punched through the metal, shards of ice spraying into the room. Ross and Jake opened fire. Bullets sparked against the icy surface of the limb, barely slowing it. The creature roared a deep, hollow sound that seemed to come from every direction at once. Saria broke free from their hands, her entire body glowing like molten silver. She stepped toward the hole in the floor, heat radiating from her so strongly that the walls began to drip with condensation. The creature tried to push through again, but this time steam hissed violently from the point of contact. Its roar turned into a scream. Saria didn't stop. She pressed both hands to the edge of the hole, the glow flooding into the metal and down into the ice below. The temperature in the room spiked instantly. Ross and the others had to back away as the heat became unbearable. Then a blinding flash, a shockwave of steam, and silence. The floor smoked where the hole had been, but there was no sign of the creature. No sound but the hiss of cooling metal. Saria collapsed. Ross caught her before she hit the floor. Her glow was gone now completely. Her skin was warm, almost human warm, but her eyes were closed. Emily checked her pulse. She's alive, just exhausted. Ross looked around the room. The heaters were still dead. The storm outside was gone, and the silence felt real this time. Jake let out a long breath. I think it's over. Ross looked down at Saya's sleeping face. No, he said quietly. This was just the first time. Whatever's out there, they're not done with us. Emily frowned. Then why did she risk herself like that? Ross glanced toward the window. In the faint moonlight on the snow outside, he thought he saw something shapes, small, moving far in the distance. Not hostile. Watching Dot, maybe other survivors. Maybe her people, or maybe the next threat. Saria stirred in his arms, whispering. One soft word before sleep claimed her again. Together, and for the first time that night, Ross believed it.